We are staying on top of that. Now to the latest from Mexico after the killing of a notorious cartel leader, Nemesio Ruben Osguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho. The Mexican military killed El Mencho, the head of the new generation drug cartel, known to be one of the most powerful cartels in Mexico. The killing happened yesterday outside of Puerto Vallarta during an operation to capture El Mencho. And you hear it there. It triggered cartel violence across the region and forced civilians and tourists to shelter in place. Flights in and out of Mexico have been canceled, and schools in several states there have canceled classes. NBC4's McCollum Medina covers Mexico, and he's been speaking with Americans who had to shelter in place as this cartel violence exploded. He's live with their stories and why they say the situation has an eerie resemblance to the COVID-19 lockdown. Mac.
That's right, Annabelle. You know, we did talk to a lot of these folks who are either living in Puerto Vallarta or are visiting Puerto Vallarta. They say they're aware that the cartel operates in that state, but they didn't expect the violence to literally come at their doorstep. And in one case, it was just feet away.
I heard gunshots.
Mario Montes, who grew up in Pasadena and now lives in Puerto Vallarta, was home working when the violence broke out Sunday morning. This convenience store and a lot of others like them were set on fire. This worker here also caught on fire. She was able to get the flames out as she ran outside the building as it burned.
That's literally around the corner from where we live.
Mario says he and his wife stayed hunkered down as the violence grew. These videos from Annie Garcia shows the multiple fires that burned around her home near the center of the resort town. Semi-trucks were also set on fire at the nearby Costco. Mario says his friend was in the Romantica zone when the fires were started there.
They were locked down because they could see the fires outside of the building. And so he's the one that kind of started telling me, like, hey, there's like this is happening, they're locking down the city.
I can't get anywhere, and apparently no one can get to me.
Colton Downley was stuck in that zone wrapping up work as a stand-up comedian. He says he was unable to get on a plane out of Puerto Vallarta. Travel was grounded. He described what he saw outside his hotel.
Looked like COVID, where everybody was, and I've never been to PV before, but it just looked like everything was closed. And then a couple blocks down, there were some buildings that were like charred up, and you could see that there had been a fire there.
I walked out and it was just desolate. It was just no one on the streets, maybe like one person.
Mario shared video of what that looked like and then what he saw at a local grocery store. Lines out the door, people trying to buy food and water. Both him and Colton say they're waiting things out and hoping for the best.
I just haven't had those thoughts of like, maybe we should go somewhere else. I don't feel unsafe even after this.
Now, they both tell me that they're getting updates either from their hotel or their local government, and they do see some light at the end of the tunnel because they do think some of this violence is subsiding. They're seeing more of these stores opening up as the day goes on. We're live. I'm McCollum Medina, NBC4 News.
All right, Mac, thank you very much for that. Meantime, the fallout of El Mencho's killing is rippling through Mexico to Southern California. I want to bring in the Consul General of Mexico here in Los Angeles, Carlos González Gutiérrez. Consul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Annabelle, for the invitation.
Consul, you've been in contact with the Mexican government. What's the latest, and is there a plan in place to bring this all to an end?
Yes, well, the latest is that today there are no more roadblocks or additional incidents. Those violent episodes that we saw in your screens were part of the reaction by people from El Mencho organization trying to retaliate against members of the National Guard and by destroying vehicles in order to cause panic and intimidate. But those are finished. Today, there are no more roadblocks. There is no more of these type of incidents. Airports are operating normally, and the vast majority of the flights that were canceled yesterday are already operating. So I just want to reiterate that today it's a different day, and we don't see none of the incidents that we saw after the first 12 hours after Mencho was taken down.
Consul, we have a lot of people here in Southern California with family in Puerto Vallarta, or people who were simply visiting and got caught in the middle of this. What's your message to them?
Well, first, to trust our institutions. We are imposing the rule of law. It is under our control, and we have absolutely not a single report of any people born outside our country, any foreigner being injured or killed during this operation. In contrast, there were 27 members of our military and our law enforcement agencies that were unfortunately killed, as well as 30 members of organized crime.
Consul, as you know, safety is top of mind right now. What's your advice to anyone who may have upcoming trips planned to Mexico?
Well, it's always useful to check official sources of information, like the Mexican Embassy in Washington, D.C., or the Mexican Consulate in L.A., or the Foreign Ministry in Mexico, as well as the State Department and the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City. You will notice that in the State Department reports, Mexico is distributed according to different levels of risk, and you will see by yourself that the vast majority of our country does not represent any risk. It's always useful to get that information, but only from official sources, because unfortunately, what we also saw yesterday was a lot of fake news. We saw false reports made with artificial intelligence in social media, in which we saw an airplane being on fire in the tarmac, or we saw supposedly attacks to the general public in the airport. That was completely false, and it is crucial not to follow misinformation.
Consul, you know, when we think of Mexico, a lot of people are thinking about the cartels, of course, their safety. Do you know if there's a plan in place already to bring this to an end?
Well, yes, of course. We are slowly but surely eroding the capabilities of organized crime in Mexico. It was not only El Mencho who was taken down. It was 70 members of the organization were detained at the same time. In fact, at El Grullo, one of his two top lieutenants, alias El Tuli, the one who was organizing these retaliation efforts that we were talking about, was also taken down, and we will continue to do so in the next following days. I would like to remind you that Mexico is number 6 in terms of tourism destination in the world. We are a powerhouse in terms of tourism. The vast majority of people who visit our country visit it happily with absolutely no risk.
And Consul, before you go, very quickly, do you think this will have an impact on the economy on both countries here?
I don't think so. We are the #1 trading partner of the United States. We are the #1 exporter and the #1 importer of goods. We are a shared production platform thanks to the trade agreement that we have had with the U.S. for the last 30+ years. I think that the integration of our economy is pretty strong. And on the contrary, I think that the more we collaborate in order to fight organized crime, the better it will be for business.
Consul General of Mexico here in LA, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will, of course, continue to follow the travel impact and the latest developments from the latest developments from the government in Mexico. For more context, you can read more about El Mencho's background. Just head to our website, NBCLA.com.